my first guest, Nicolina, Lademann from Marshalls, Dent and Wilmot. You're a partner.
I am.
In a legal firm.
I am.
At a very young age.
I am.
What did you think about my tips there? Were they good steps?
They were.
Bad?
They were really interesting. I think a lot of people should listen to them.
Yep.
Yeah,
so from a preparation point of view?
Preparation point of view.
Risk
absolutely.
management?
Risk management, very important for anyone going into business.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about you. So your background was you started studying a completely different field.
Yes, I did. I did a science arts degree when I got out of uni. When I got out of high school. So started uni at 18. Very idealistic, like most 18-year-olds, I think. Had opportunities through my arts degree to study overseas, which I did. Finished my degree, thought I would like to work for the UN. Very, very idealistic. Very young. 22.
Were you involved in political parties and all that sort of thing as well?
At university I was. I was definitely quite active with the student union. And then, so I enrolled in my law degree, was actually working in Berlin at the time.
Berlin?
Yep, not in anything to do with law. Came back to...
So what were you doing in Berlin?
I was working for an American company, actually in a marketing organisation, but it was American run, so got quite a lot of opportunity to meet people from all over the world in Berlin. So deferred my law degree, came back, did it for 3 years full time, and then thought, right, I'm going to use this and change the world, but first I have to do articles. So I was very lucky. I moved to country Victoria, so by then I was 26.
So hang on, you're 26, you've started in Melbourne, you've done a double degree in something that you're not going to proceed with. You've gone over to Berlin, you're working in literature and all those sorts of things, and now you're taking on law.
Now
you've come back and you're only 26 at this point.
Only 26, and thought I know that I really want to get experience, so decided to move to the country. It's harder now to become a lawyer and to do articles or a grad year, but it was quite hard then, but was determined. Interviewed in Benalla in northeast Victoria, which is a beautiful part of the world. Was very lucky to work for a firm there with a principal who had been a lawyer for probably 50 years by that time. I was his last article clerk. He took me on, trained me in absolutely everything: conveyancing, wills, litigation, fence disputes, farming disputes, made sure I was at the magistrates court every single week. So by the time I moved back to Melbourne 2 years later, I had literally been in the magistrates court every week and had a lot of experience appearing before a judge or before a magistrate.
I'll pause you for a sec there, because this is really the key point of your story, I reckon. So from the point of view of accelerating your career, so compare that to finding, beating your way into one of the major legal firms, which you're a part of now, and wanting to do your articles then. Would that have been 2 years of photocopying?
Yes, it definitely. It would have been 2 years of photocopying. 2 years of
photocopying.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that is the difference. And that's, I'm a small to medium accounting practice ourselves down in Melbourne, and that's when I'm interviewing people, I remind them that, hey, you can go work for one of the major firms if you can get in now. It's getting harder and harder to get in. But I can tell you, you'll end up in their audit division, or you'll end up in wherever, and that's what you'll do for the next 2, 3, 4 years. You come to CIA Tax and you will end up doing everything. Within the first 3 months, you'll be doing your self-managed super fund, you'll be doing partnerships, you'll be doing trust, like you, off at the, doing just about everything. And the experience you gain in a very short period of time. Here you are now at the age of 29. You've got more experience than most lawyers would have, international, educational, and you're forcing your way into major law firms. With what behind you? A bit of a social. How do you get into the major firms from coming from the bush? Coming back from the bush.
I had no trouble getting a job. Recruiters and firms were interviewing me, saying, you have got so much experience that people 5 years out, 6 years out just don't have. I had no problem at all.
Were you building a brand at that point?
I was building my brand, and I'm very lucky now that I still have people that I acted for when I was doing my articles, that I'm still acting for them as their lawyer. I was building my brand because I was looking ahead. I knew what I wanted to do. I always knew I wanted to be a partner, and that's even when I was an article clerk in Benalla in country Victoria, in a tiny firm with 7 people, I knew that I wanted to be a partner in a big firm.
Yep.
So that's what I was aiming for. So I was always looking at the end game.
So then you've moved into a big firm at around the age of 30.
Yes.
And then you've said to them quite openly that I'm here for a reason.
I had a firm before the firm I'm now with. So another really good firm with a lot of experience. Another partner who'd been a partner of his own firm for 50 years. You just can't beat that sort of experience, and someone who takes you on knowing that you want to learn. And I think that's the key to, and I have that now when people come to me, do you really want this? And yeah, he took me on. I unfortunately has sold his firm, and then I moved to Marshalls and Dent, and I said to them from the start, even though I wasn't a partner, this is what I want to do. So what do I have to do to get there?
So when you say building your brand in the legal profession, what are you doing to build your brand? Is it build a social media network, or is it a client network? Or?
I think it's both. I think it's to build a client network. People will, if you do a good job for the people, they will trust you, they will come back to you, and they'll also refer their friends to you. I think that's just the most basic, best way to build your brand with clients. Then you've got to build your brand with your referrers as well. So people who might not use you for their own work, but they meet you, they know clearly you're confident, you can do a good job. You prove that by them referring someone to you. You do a good job for them, for their client, and then their client goes back to the referrer, say it's an accountant. They say to their accountant, I was happy with Nicolina, I'll use her again.
Yep, so fantastic. And I follow you on social media, of course, and I always see you at events, a lot of networking events everywhere.
I am, and I think that's the most important thing. So I have a lot of interests. I like going to the horse races. I love getting dressed up and going to the horse races. I've started golf, so I've got my first golf day next week. I think it's important to go to things that you enjoy doing, because otherwise it's boring.
Are you an extrovert?
Not particularly.
No, so you're introvert? Yeah.
Probably introverted.
So when you rest on your own?
Yes, definitely. But I do like to be out meeting people, and I think it's important to do things that you enjoy doing, and that's a good way to meet people. So yes, I put myself out there. I say yes to every opportunity.
Do you feel comfortable doing that sometimes?
You train yourself.
I think so. Yeah, I agree with you there. So you've got to the point where you're now 36 years old. So this is a great, amazing step. So female, 36, and now the partner of a major law firm in Melbourne.
Yes.
How did that feel?
It was amazing. I actually couldn't believe it when it happened. It took me, I probably still pinch myself sometimes, it took me a long time to come to terms with it. When I started as a partner, every other partner was about 20 years older than I was, at least.
Yep. And how do they feel about a young lady partner?
I'm very, very lucky. The firm that I'm with,
Yep.
they're very supportive of female partners, and they had female partners. So now we're almost a 50-50 split within our partnership of 10 people, female to male, which is great. And they've subsequently taken on younger partners because they understand to grow the business. That's what needs to happen.
They did add more young people.
But at this time, it was very, very scary being around the partners table with people that were well into their late 50s.
All right, so this is a dream for a lot of lawyers out there. They want to become a lawyer in a big legal firm. Is it boring when you get there, like all the partner meetings and all those sort of things you got to say? Is it boring? I can imagine sitting there, and I'm sure, especially in the legal fraternity, certainly in our accounting industry, a lot of people there like the sound of their own voice, and you've got to sit in a lot of those meetings. Is it that bad, or are you a very special firm?
I think like you would appreciate with any sort of partnership, there's a lot of administration that no one tells you about. It's not the glamorous part of the job.
Yeah. So I mean, as a partner, you've still got to meet your billable hours.
You still have to.
You've still got to meet all the education. You've still got to meet all the networking, the partner meetings, and you've still got to be out there, looking after your team.
That's right. Well. Mentoring, which is a big part of it. Yes. Yeah. So it's definitely not as glamorous as people would like you to believe. Like watching TV. It'd be great if it was like that.
Is that what got you interested? Watching whatever it was?
No.
I can't. Yeah, I struggle with it myself because it's not dramatic.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's
not that dramatic.
It's not that dramatic or not that glamorous.
Okay. All right. So from now on, you're amazing. You've reached the pinnacle of your profession in your mid-30s. Phenomenal. Where do we go from here? What's next?
Where do we go from here? I think I'd like to continue building on what I've got. Personally, I'd like to build my own wealth,
Yep.
which I'm very lucky. I've got people around me who are assisting me with that. I've got good advisors, which is fantastic, and I think that's really what's important for it's good that I'm doing all this work, but how do I really capitalise on that, and how do I build myself?
Yeah, and you've earned the right, and I think that's the key. You know, you've pushed yourself hard, and look, your progress is phenomenal. I mean, your first double degree didn't have anything to do with your career to date.
No.
And I think that's the biggest tip from this episode, from the start of this episode, is that you do have these choices where you can actually move from Melbourne out to a regional Victoria, New South Wales, wherever it might be, where they're actually crying out for skilled people to come out there and fast track your career by getting far more experience in a far shorter period of time. Move back to Melbourne, where you're going to be in demand, and propel your career from there. So, welcome back to 30 Life Crisis, and to continue James's story, or James Schaefer, Jim as he prefers to be called, his story a little bit more. He's made the jump. He's gone out and become a sole trader. I run an accounting practice. A lot of people ask me questions about when they're starting a business. What are some of the things they need to consider? One of the biggest things you need to consider is legal risk. What are you actually doing, and how risky is that? Should I be a private company? Should I be a trust from a profit distribution point of view? Or should I just keep costs really low and just start as a sole trader, get an ABN online, and away I go? So the person I'm going to throw to on this is Nicolina, because you're a commercial lawyer.
I am a commercial lawyer.
So what should people consider? They're thinking about starting a business. What do they think? I'm standing here, I want to start a small business. What do I do?
I think the best thing to do is to ensure you've got an accountant and a lawyer, and understand that it's an expense, it's an upfront expense, but it is, in the long run, it's the best thing to have on board. It's important, especially as a small business, to have a good relationship with those two people and understand that you can go to them, ask about employment, ask about cash flow, how you should structure yourself, and listen to their advice. I think that's the best part.
So a lot of people start their small businesses, as we said at the start of the show, as a side hustle or a side gig.
Yes.
Okay, so what do they need to consider there?
They should consider whether they're going to take on any employees. Also consider where they want their business to go, and if they want it to grow, if they just want to be a sole trader for their the whole time of the business.
Well, let's talk on that sole trader decision. So at the start, when you're starting a small business, it's very micro. Okay, there's probably no income and there's expenses going out. So you don't want to spend money on setting up a company or doing whatever. And in particular, if the business is going to fail, what's the point in setting up a company structure you're never going to use again? What consideration should I be looking at from a risk point of view?
You should be looking at what your personal exposure is.
Correct,
so do you have any assets? Do you have a house? Is it in your own name?
Yep.
Do you have a car? Is it in your own name? What if it all goes bad and you lose everything, what can creditors take from you? Creditors include the ATO, as well as potentially suppliers or people that you're in business with. So you need to look at how you're structured.
And I think that's a very important point. I actually had a client come to me the other day. He doesn't even reach the GST threshold, which is 75,000. And he's only I won't say, but a small, safe, handyman, if you like. No employees, no risk, whatsoever. But he's got a family factory that he's inherited through the generations. It's actually worth a heck of a lot of money. So for someone to come to me and say, I've got a turnover of about $50,000, should I start up a private company? The answer is no, every single time, except when you start to explore, okay, something can go wrong. Someone could fall over the floor you've just laid. You could just drop something off the ladder, and then you have all sorts of liabilities. What about insurance?
Insurance is extremely important, and I think apart from a lawyer and an accountant, you should speak to an insurance broker and see what sort of insurance you will need. People wrongly assume that just because they don't have a bricks and mortar workplace that they don't need insurance, but you do. If
Everyone
you're out
needs
and
it.
you're dealing with the public, you definitely need to have insurance to cover yourself, and it will depend on what your business is, what industry you're in, and how you're dealing with people, but you will need insurance to protect yourself.
Correct, and the best place to look for insurance is usually your industry body.
Definitely.
They've normally negotiated some great deals. All right, so a lot of people come to me and say, all right, Steve, I'm going to spend that $1,000 and set up that company. I can just do whatever I want now. It'll be completely risk-free. Is that right? What director liabilities are out there?
No, definitely not right.
Yep.
If you do have a small company and you are the sole director, you are personally liable. So you're liable for superannuation, for GST, for every type of tax. You're going to be personally liable, depending what your business does. You're going to be liable if someone does injure themselves in the course of doing business with you, depending again what your business is. There's
So
a
work cover type
work
accident,
cover,
you're the director, you're
work-
liable, you can't rule that out.
work
Yep.
cover accident. Well, yeah, particularly if you've got employees, then it's important to make sure you've got your work cover sorted out and looked at. But just everything, you're personally on the hook.
So just because you're the director, you are not safe by bringing it. It is an extra layer of protection, though.
It is an extra layer of protection, but then you should be looking at where your assets are held and how they're held, and if there is some distance between you as a director and your
All right,
asset.
well, I'm going to outsmart everyone here. I'm going to put the house in my wife's name, and I'm going to pay all the mortgage payments from my business accounts, and I'm going to go broke and no one will be able to touch the house. Is that right?
No.
Yep, just because it's in her waste, no?
No.
Yep.
There's always ways. There's
Correct.
always ways around that. So no, that's not any guarantee.
So the rule there is I'm financially contributing to an asset, even though that asset's not in my own name. That is up for grabs as well. Yep. So you've got to do this properly.
You do need to do it properly. I think that's the best advice. Make sure you get legal, accounting, and insurance advice.
Yep. So little structures like a private company with a family trust that distributes the profit directly to the person who may own the asset, not from yourself to them. That creates that distance. Helps. Everything helps.
Everything helps.
Yeah, that's what I try to tell
helps.
people. There's no way you can actually get yourself out of risk. The moment you're in business, it is risk. And that's why I tell people don't jump into the river unless you're willing to accept there is risk, because it is never risk-free. But then it's all about minimising and being smart with it.
That's right.
Another thing I wanted to talk about as a director of a private company of my small business that I've just kicked off, supplier agreements, leases, all those sort of things. When they're asking for a director's guarantee, what am I doing?
I would advise against it.
Can you?
Because, you can't. Some suppliers will insist on having a personal guarantee. You then have to be aware that you're not just signing it and thinking, oh, it'll be right, the company will cover it. If things go bad, your company goes into liquidation for whatever reason, or you decide to put the company into liquidation, you're still personally liable for those supplier agreements. So you're not safe with them, but a lot of suppliers will insist on them. A lease will most definitely.
So I take a 5-year lease and the business goes broke after 2 years, and I've signed a 5-year lease agreement with a personal guarantee. What does that mean?
Then the landlord will still be able to go after you for the balance of the lease period, so the rest of the 3 years. So that means, personal liabilities, which does include bankruptcy if you can't afford to pay what's owed. So yes, you're not protected. So do be very careful before you sign any personal guarantees.
Yeah, very good. And the other one I wanted to talk about, like quite often people will leave a place of employment and then go start their own business, and they may take some of their clients with them, but they've got an employment contract that says restraint of trade or gardening leave or whatever we want to call it. What do we have to be careful around that?
So with restraints of trade can be difficult to enforce.
Yep.
We say the general rule of thumb for just an average standard employee is about a 3-month restraint. Obviously, the higher up you are in the company, the higher your remuneration is as an employee, then your restraint can be much tighter on the employee.
But what happens? 3 weeks after I've left, I've got a restraint of trade. My once favourite client comes to me and says, Steve, I found you online, social media, I want you to be my accountant. I hate that company you used to work for. Where do I stand there?
There is no property in client, so the client is allowed to come and find you. And
so as long as I don't ring him and say, come over to me.
Provided you're not actively trying to get those clients, then there's not...
And what's active? Me putting social media posts up?
No, you ringing up or emailing the client and saying, hey, I've moved to a new company or I've started out on my own, come to me now. As long as you're not actively doing that during your restraint period, then if the client comes to you, there's not a lot that your former employer can do about it, although they can still engage a lawyer, and it depends what you've been doing leading up to leaving the business. We often see people who have been emailing themselves client lists and then having coffees socially with people on those client lists after they've left. So
it becomes problematic.
It becomes problematic.
All right, the other one I have, looking from the other side, I'm now a small business and I've now grown to a point where I'm expanding my small business and I'm putting on employees. How do I protect my business? With a restraint of trade?
You would protect it with a restraint of trade. That's probably the only way you've got to protect yourself with your employees. The relationship again, it's between you and your clients.
You've nailed it there, and that's I've written about that in one of my books. I talked about a cleaner that expanded his business, and when you're a cleaner, you've generally got a relationship with the people. You're there, and they know you. But what he was doing, and this is based on a true story, he would bring someone on, but he'd still do every second clean or every third clean or every fourth clean, and then just keep expanding himself up. So he still kept that relationship with the people.
Yes.
Yep.
That's the most important part.
Yeah, it's difficult to manage.
It is.
Yeah, because you can't actually protect it. What about the other one? I actually believe in bringing people on as junior partners, or
Yes.
bring them into a profit sharing arrangement.
Yes.
So actually make your staff want to stay and not go and service the clients.
Yes.
So instead of relying on the legal system as a whole to protect your business and your business value, you've just got to be practical about it. Yeah.
Very
What
true.
about you, Jims? Did you take anyone from your old?
Well, yes and no. When I left the last corporate, one of their suppliers came with me, and I did work for them. So,
Yep.
but he
Did you get a nasty letter from the employer?
No. He approached me. I had the right legal advice at the time, and they said that's okay. If he approaches you,
Yep.
in fact, I didn't have a restraint of trade on my contract, so that's an oversight on their behalf.
Yeah,
but
silly.
he approached me, so I was clear.
Yep, good.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to leave it there for a moment. We're going to come back and we'll talk about sales and marketing. But look, when you start up a small business, it doesn't matter if it's an absolute micro side hustle business, you need to have a chat with your accountant or your lawyer or whatever on what's at risk here. Because you might think it's a very simple, safe thing, but it could have huge ramifications. And then it's just a matter of accepting the fact that there is risk and structuring yourself to minimise that risk through insurance, through corporate entities, and importantly, just making sure you pay your bills, making sure the bill's liquid. Welcome back to 30 Life Crisis, and for those who are starting to consider how they're going to build a small business, especially in the services-based industry, I'm going to throw to Jim Schaefer, and ask him, how do I build up a referral network for my business?
If a referral network is important to you,
Yep.
as an accountant or a solicitor or
In the service-based
and
industries,
service-based
it really
industry,
is, yep. Or trades, yep.
The first thing is to have a plan.
Yep.
What we've seen over the many years is people start just networking and referring at random without a distinct objective and therefore a strategy. So,
Okay, so what should go in that plan?
well, the first thing is objective.
Yep.
What do you want out of that referral network? Is
Okay.
it customers? Is it revenue? Is it margin? So not putting numbers on the paper.
So not a shotgun approach,
No.
a rifled approach.
A rifle approach. So
Yep.
focus like a laser is what
Okay.
we used to say.
Yep.
So determine what your objectives are.
Mm-hmm.
Below that sits strategies, and strategies essentially is a marketing word which means how. So how do you get your objectives? So the referral system can be through a networking program. So pick the groups that are relevant to you and your target audience. So if you're an accountant, probably going to with all due respect, a Rotary or a Lions might not be right for you because they tend to be older demographics. So think about your psychographics and demographics and where they're going to hang out. So business networks are valuable. Groups like the Executive Connection and YPO are valuable. So
Sporting
think about
groups.
Sporting groups,
Yep.
but only if the target market goes to those sporting events and have
I
a
can
chance to
tell
talk to them.
from we've sponsored a couple of football clubs over the journey, and it's been very lucrative. They're very loyal football
Yes.
clubs,
Yeah.
and then saying, well, actually, go speak to Steve or go speak to CIA Tax because they're a sponsor.
Yep.
So if someone's looking for an accountant, I've found sponsoring football clubs in particular a very great way to open up a network.
Did you go to the events that the footy club held though?
Well, I do now. I'm
Yeah.
the chaplain at the Sandringham Football Club, but certainly in our previous engagements, no. Maybe one of our team would go along.
Yep.
But it's just that if you know, or in that case, we did know the senior people at the club.
Yes.
They would look out for us all the time. So
Yeah.
I think taking on any paid sponsorship role in the community is certainly going to get you a look in.
If it's relevant to your target market, yes.
Yep.
Yep,
Good.
absolutely.
All right. What else can I do? Can I become an ambassador?
It depends. As you know, we met through the Bayside Business Network some years ago.
Volunteering as ambassadors.
Volunteering as
Yeah.
ambassadors, we became the advertisers for the group, and we
Yep.
would hold seminars and so on. I think that has value.
So volunteering.
Yep, volunteering. Volunteering at large is, I think, a good thing universally, because I think if you put it out there and help people in whatever field might be.
I've got something that says initiative is rewarded.
Yes.
The more initiative you put in, and volunteering is huge.
Absolutely. I'm a big believer the universe does provide. So if you put it out over there, it might come in from over here, but you never know. But I
Yep.
think volunteering and helping people is part of the greater good.
All right, social network, social media, how does that all work?
It's getting very muddy.
Yep.
If you look at the trends here in America as our two main markets, and less in Europe, Facebook is declining, but the fastest growing category in Facebook are the over 55s and 60s, grandparents looking after their kids and grandkids. If you're under 30, you don't really go on Facebook anymore.
Where do you go?
It's either Twitter or Snapchat. So it really comes down to your target market. LinkedIn is owned by Microsoft. You've seen them commercialise that more and more as their rates go
So has
up.
LinkedIn reached a peak, or is it still
It's become, again, it's quite muddy. A lot of people use it for hunting prospects and very hard hunting versus making connections, having conversations, building trust over time, and then perhaps asking for a brief. LinkedIn is often just used as a conduit to ask for a brief on a project for you, not about the customer. So all networking should be serving to the audience, not serving yourself.
Okay.
So if you offer support and guidance and help, that will come back to you some way down the track. But the immediacy of those things is not that relevant.
So Facebook, if you're a professional, you put up your personal posts to show you're human as such. LinkedIn, you put up your semi-personal professional posts as such to show that you're human at these engagement events. I know, Nicolina, you do that very, very, very well. What's your strategy?
I think similar to Jim. I think you need to have your networks, you need to have your referrals, but I think you need to have a quite broad approach to how you want to get those networks and referrals. But I think it has to be really a personal interest. I think it's really hard to go out there and say you're not interested in football, and you go and you're watching every game and you're at the sporting club and you have no interest. People are going to know, and people aren't going to connect with you if you're not genuine. So everyone has things that they're interested in. So find what you're interested in, how you can give back to the community, whether it's volunteering with a football club if you're interested, for example. But it's got to be genuine.
Yeah, very much. And what about paid advertising, Jim? Social media paid advertising. I mean, I experiment with that a little bit. And I've now got a loyal bunch of people who click on my videos and watch that I was completely unaware of. They're not liking or following my post, but every time they are retargeted, they do pick up on my links and watch the videos through.
In the last 3 or 4 years, video uptake is 4 times the level of a static image. So video is quite interactive. But if you look at LinkedIn now, every post or second post is a video. So it's almost become a bit of a pollutant.
Have blogs gone?
Yeah, blogs have disappeared to a level. People still write posts and articles.
People will Google your keywords and find you.
But it's the same strategy. If your objective is to generate revenue or contacts, and your target audience is on Facebook, Insta, LinkedIn, Snapchat, whatever it might be, and you want to have that as part of your strategy, it makes sense.
So how much should you be spending on social media advertising?
It's sort of how long is a piece of string. It's very difficult. As a small business, because we talk B2B, business to business, and B2C, business to consumer, if you're talking to mums and dads and maybe kids, maybe Facebook could work. If you're talking to a B2B audience, like we have clients in the building space or mechanical space who want to get more, they have LinkedIn, we can do boosted posts through LinkedIn. And the same with AdWords. AdWords through Google is very effective targeting. You can geo-target down to a profile. So all these platforms have a number of filters that you can put. I want to talk to females aged 25 to 39 in decent suburbs of Melbourne through either Facebook or AdWords and target that demographic.
You can?
Yeah.
Yep, and I think that's the key, and learning what those keywords are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, all right.
Absolutely.
Okay, so from a strategy point of view, so I need to go see a professional because it's one thing I have learnt with social media. I was spending money just putting ads up, and I didn't even know about targeting. I was just paying Facebook $20 or $30 each time to go out and just generically target. But I'm actually finding that now that they're recording those connections, and they can start to tell me who my actual demographic is. But I've had to pay for that.
Well, you're paying, if you get sick, you go to a doctor.
Yep.
And our philosophy has always been, if you need someone to actually put a marketing strategy together that's going to work to your specific target audience, you don't know how to do that.
Yeah, exactly right. So cost for that, small to medium business, what are they looking at?
In broad terms, $1,000 a month.
Yeah, okay. That sounds about right.
And because the digital platforms are also measurable, you know in terms of, and there are platforms like HubSpot, which is an American digital footprint company, and they can track as a customer comes in through your AdWords to your website and downloads a form or downloads a PDF or fills a form in, then goes to your LinkedIn page, then goes to your Insta, they track that.
Okay, so someone like Nicolina, who's a professional partner, more in the career mindset than the self-employed mindset to a degree, being a partner of a legal firm, should someone like Nicolina be paying for social media marketing?
If her target market would respond to that. If you're in the personal space versus commercial space, but in the commercial space, having a LinkedIn program and having a voice of authority strategy would make a lot of sense, because you can boost those to, if you're talking to corporate decision makers or influencers, you can boost those posts out to that target audience. They will appear on their walls.
Okay.
So yes, absolutely.
Yep. No, very good. So thought leadership, that's the key.
Well, it's important in professional services, less so in trades and retail, but yes.
Oh, that's very interesting. So people, even if you're a professional considering boosting your posts to get noticed, a very good idea.